With the new century comes great change, and New Zealand is no exception to that. Going into this election, there'd be a new head of state and a new up-and-coming MP who hoped to end his party's electoral drought. So get ready for the election of 1902. The 1902 New Zealand general election was held on the 25th of November in the general electorates and on the 22nd of December in the Māori electorates to elect a total of 80 MPs to the 15th session of the New Zealand Parliament. During the parliamentary session of the 14th Parliament, very little notable legislation was passed. This was due to the government's preoccupation with the Boer War. As stated in my last video, the Boer War was a major turning point in New Zealand history, being the first time we had sent troops overseas to fight. New Zealand soldiers would perform remarkably in the field and would adapt well to fight in the harsh, rugged environment of South Africa. The war would drag on until all Boer fighters surrendered in May 1902, when the British took control of South Africa, eventually absorbing the Boer republics into the Union of South Africa. By war's end, New Zealand had sent 10 contingents and 7,000 men to fight in the war. Tragically, the brutal fighting would claim the lives of 230 of those men. On their return home to New Zealand, the servicemen would receive a hero's welcome and be lauded for their heroic efforts. The Boer War wasn't the only major historic event to occur in those early years of the 1900s. On the 22nd of January 1901, Britain's longest reigning monarch and the only monarch New Zealand had ever known at that point, Queen Victoria, would sadly pass away. Like the rest of the British Empire, New Zealand would mourn for their late queen. As the result of her death, Queen Victoria's eldest son Albert would be crowned King Edward VII. In 1902, Prime Minister Richard Seddon would travel to London and attend the coronation of King Edward. On his return home, however, Seddon wasn't given the royal treatment by the press or his opponents. The press, particularly the newspapers like the New Zealand Herald, hated Seddon and routinely criticised him. One major scandal that broke just before the election was when it was uncovered that Seddon and the Liberals were extreme practitioners of pork barrel politics. Pork barrelling is a metaphor for the appropriation of government spending for localised projects, cured solely for or primarily to bring money into a representative's district. Despite being heavily criticised of this by the opposition and the press, with calls for Seddon to resign, King Dick simply brushed off the accusations and remarked, "In politics, you should always keep something up your sleeve for next year. Keep the buggers on a string and they'll keep you in office." Following their crushing defeat in the 1899 election, the Conservatives were in turmoil. Immediately after the election, their leader William Russell resigned. Their caucus was divided and couldn't agree on a new leader. In early 1902, opposition whip and Member of Parliament for the seat of Franklin, William Massey, an MP virtually unknown outside his electorate, proclaimed himself the leader of the Conservatives. However, he didn't have any support. His position was undermined further when Seddon continued to refer to William Russell as the leader of the opposition. As a result, the Conservatives would go into the election leaderless. Parliament was dissolved on November 5th, 1902 by Governor John Marks Knox, the 5th Earl of Ranfurly. Due to rapid population growth, the number of seats in Parliament would be increased from 74 to 80, with 41 seats required for a majority. And the winner was? To no one's surprise, yet again, Seddon and the Liberals won, winning 47 seats and 51.8% of the vote. In second place were the Conservatives, winning again 19 seats, but getting thumped in the popular vote, losing 16% from their previous result to win only 20.6% of the vote. This was a terrible result, remembering also that Parliament's seat count increased by 6 and the Tories failed to win any new electorates. Apart from Seddon, the biggest winners of the night were independents, who picked up 8 seats to create a massive crossbench of 14 independent MPs. The surge in popularity of independents was due to the public being turned off Seddon due to his political style and pork barrelling. However, with 47 seats, Seddon still had a comfortable majority in both Houses of Parliament. Liberal MP for Greymouth, Sir Arthur Guinness, was elected Speaker of the House of Representatives, replacing retiring MP and Speaker Sir Maurice O'Rourke. The Liberals also maintained almost complete control of the 53-member Upper House. One last bit of trivia. In 1900, New Zealand officially adopted this as its official flag, over a year before Australia would adopt this as its official flag. Speaking of Australia, in 1901, New Zealand would be asked to join in federation with Australia. It was assumed that because New Zealand had once been part of the state of New South Wales in the 1830s, they would happily join. However, in New Zealand, that idea went over about as well as the suggestion Australia invented pavlova. Thanks for watching, and come back next time for the election of 1905.